I think I should get started now. It's a little after 11. I want to answer those questions, though. Let's get started. I'll explain how this is going to work. For those of you who don't know, my name is Darren Alff, and I am the guy behind the website at Bicycle Touring Pro. I'm the person that sometimes they refer to as the Bicycle Touring Pro. And I started bike touring in 2001 when I was 17 years old and had just graduated from high school. At the time, I cycled from Oregon to Mexico down the California coastline. That was my first big bike tour. And it took 30 days, and it was about 1,000 miles total. And I thought that that one trip was going to be like my big bike touring experience, and that after that I would, I don't know, get a job and do all of these normal things that normal people do. But I really became addicted to bike touring after that trip, and since then I've gone on a big bike trip every single year for the last 15 years. And now that 2016 is right around the corner, I am in the process of planning my 16th year of bike touring all around the world. In that time, I've pedaled across the United States 6 times in different directions. I've gone to 50 or 60, I don't even know how many countries now, I've lost track. Probably pedaled 100,000 plus miles total. After my 3rd year of cycling, I stopped keeping track of how many miles I'd pedaled, because I just figured it's a big number and nobody cares. If I say 10,000 or 100,000, people will probably say, oh wow, that's really impressive. So anyways, but yeah, so I've done a lot of cycling, and in 2007, I started the website at bicycletouringpro.com. I started the website because a friend of mine, after seeing me do these bike tours for so many years, contacted me and said, I want to do a bike tour too, and how do I get started? You know, so I talked to him for a long time, usually just over the phone, kind of coaching and guiding him on, you know, what kind of bike does he need? What kind of gear does he need? How does he plan his route? You know, how does he stay safe? All that kind of stuff. And after walking him through the process, I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could write down everything I know about bike touring and share it with the world? So that's how Bicycle Touring Pro got started in late 2007. It's now late 2015. And Bicycle Touring Pro has grown to the #1 bike touring website in the world. I have now written 4 books about cycling, the 2 most popular of which are The Bicycle Touring Blueprint, which is a book that teaches you basically everything you need to know about bicycle touring from beginning to end. Like I said, it's about what kind of bike do you need? What kind of gear do you need? How do you plan a route? How do you find touring partners? Where do you camp at night? How do you find food? How do you find water? How do you stay safe? How do you get your bike to and from the starting location? Everything that you possibly need, as well as a little bit more, is in that book. Let me just grab something really quick. Anyways, here it is. This is the book here. And a lot of people don't realize until they order it just how big it is. This is a 400-page book. It's quite hefty, but it's really cool because I tried to do something different with this book. A lot of the other there are other bike touring books out there, but this book I think is different because it's really a manual that walks you from beginning to end, and there are these what I call like worksheets, basically. So like here's a worksheet, for example, and there are these questions that you have a space to write in your answers. And the worksheets are like opportunities to think about how you want to travel, because a lot of bike touring, which is something I'll talk about here in just a moment, there's a lot of things about bike touring that are specific to you and the trip that you want to conduct. I get emails all the time from people who say, I'm planning to do a bike tour, what kind of bike should I ride? And I have to explain over and over again that the answer to that question depends on you and what your goals are for that particular type of bike tour. And I talk about in this book the different types of bike tours and how those types of bike tours dictate what kind of bike you ride, what kind of gear you use, how much weight you carry, how far you can plan to cycle on any given day, et cetera, et cetera. So these worksheets that are in this book kind of help you go through from beginning to end, like what type of bike tour am I doing? So like I tell you about the main different types of bike tours, and then at the end of the chapter I say like, you know, what type of bike tour are you most interested in doing based off the information I just gave you. And then based on your answer to that question, in the next chapter, I tell you, you know, the next thing that you need to do. If you're planning a self-supported bike tour, for example, I then teach you, okay, this is the process that you need to take. So there are a lot of if-then statements that you have to be aware of with bicycle touring. So if you're planning to do this type of bike tour, then you need this type of bike, or then you can expect to cover this sort of distance on a daily basis. And that's what the Bicycle Touring Blueprint's all about. My other book, the Essential Guide to Touring Bicycles, is more for people who are in the process of buying their first touring bike. Touring bikes are a specific type of bike that's designed for bicycle touring. And that book is all about what to look for in a good bike, where to find them, how much they cost, what makes a touring bike different than other types of bikes, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, enough about all that. That's who I am. I am the Bicycle Touring Pro, and I run the website bicycletouringpro.com. Cycled around the world. I've written 4 books about it, and I do these webinars usually about once a month or so, or whenever I have access to internet, because I travel a lot and the internet's not always that great. I do these webinars where I try to pass on some of the knowledge that I've accumulated over the years and answer any questions that you guys might have about bike touring, world travel, designing your ideal lifestyle, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what today is going to be about. Today, I want to talk just for a little bit, for like 20 minutes or less even, about, I'm going to talk first of all about the worst advice I keep reading over and over and over again on the internet other people are giving to newbies in the bike touring world. And every time I hear this advice, I think it's kind of terrible. So I want to tell you about that, and I'll tell you why I think it's so terrible. Then I'm going to talk about basically 7 things that I think I've learned over the years that if I were to like start bike touring all over again, I would really want to know these things. And these 7 things that I'm going to tell you about have nothing to do with the gear you use or the bike you ride or anything like that. These are more mental things that you should know about because, as you'll see in a moment, bike touring, a lot of bike touring, especially for a long bike trip, it's like 80% mental and 20% physical. So I'll be talking about that. And then I'm going to open it up for questions and answers, which is my favorite part. And that's what I want to save the bulk of the time today for, is answering any questions that you guys have for me. So on the page here, if you're watching on YouTube or something, off to the right, I think there is a comment section where you can leave a comment. I'm not going to be looking at that while I'm talking here for the first 20 minutes because I can't read and think talk at the same time. But as soon as I finish talking, then I'll look at those questions and take the time to answer them. So that's the plan today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And let me begin by telling you about this terrible advice that I keep reading about. And yeah, so the advice that kind of bothers me so much is when, like, I see this on, I don't know, people on the internet post like, I'm planning my first bike tour. What do I need to know, basically? And I've made my job for the last 8 years or whatever to be answering that question. So, like, I would love it if there was like a very easy answer. But I think the people on the internet try to answer this question that in a way that is easy, but is actually not. Anyways, what bothers me is when people say, just get out there, just do it, grab any bike you can, any gear you can, and just go for it, and make mistakes along the way. That's the worst advice I think I've ever heard. But I think I understand where people are coming from when they give that advice, because I've been doing these bike trips, for example, for years and years and years, and I think the people that give that advice have also been doing these trips for a long time. And I think it's very easy to give that advice, that bad advice, after you've done a big bike trip. It's very easy to say, oh, just go for it, you'll figure it out, blah, blah, blah. But when you're first starting out and you don't know anything about bike touring, or you know very little, you've never done something like this before, you have a lot of questions, you know, like all these things that I've been mentioning, like, do I need a special bike, or can I ride the bike that I already own? You know, do I need special gear, or can I use the camping gear that I'm already using for camping? You know, how do I plan out my routes? Where do I find the bike paths? All that kind of stuff. And so if you just tell someone, oh, just go for it, you'll figure it out. I hear from people all the time, by the way. I get emails like every week from somebody that has gotten that advice. They wrote to me and said, you know what, I just tried to do it. I tried to go out on my own, blah, blah, blah. I didn't train, just rode my old bike that's been sitting in the garage for 20 years. I made it about 2 days out and quit. I get those emails all the time. And it sucks, because those people usually like blocked out, you know, 2 weeks to go on their trip, took the time off of work, spent money getting, you know, traveling for the start of their trip or whatever, and then they quit after 2 days because they went in unprepared. And so, yeah, anyways, that's the worst advice I think I hear all the time. And like I said, I understand where people are coming from when they give that advice. There is a certain amount of just, you have to have the experience and you'll figure it out. There are, you know, like when I did my first bike trip in 2001 at age 17, I didn't know how to change a bike tire or anything like that, for example, but I did figure it out. But I also didn't wait until I was out on the road to get my first flat tire. For example, I learned at home how to change the flat tire before I left on my trip. So anyways, that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing, I wanted to give you some tips, really. These are some of these like mental things that I think you should know about if you're planning a bike tour. And these tips I think will be good for newbies, people that are totally new to bike touring, or even some of you who are a bit more experienced. So the 7 things I wanted to talk about. Number 1, go bicycle touring as soon as you possibly can. If this is like something that you're interested in doing, going on a bike trip, whether it's just over the weekend, like 2 days long, or 2 years long, I would suggest you do it as soon as possible. I get emails quite often from people who say, you know, I'm planning a bike trip, but I'm going to do it in 2023. And I think, whoa, you know, why then, you know, why not sooner? You know, a lot can happen in that amount of time. In my book, The Bicycle Touring Blueprint, I explain that if you're planning a big bike trip, usually 6 months is about as much time as you really need to plan a big trip like that. If you're planning a smaller trip, something less than 2 weeks, for example, you don't need nearly that amount of time to plan and prepare for your trip. So I would say usually somewhere within the 6 month to 12-month range, you can plan a bike trip, no matter what the size, whether you're going across the country or around the world, in the next 12 months. So yeah, don't wait for years and years and years, you know, especially if you can make the time, do it. So that's my first tip, basically. The other thing I would say, like the only equipment thing I'm going to mention today, is that, you know, having a good bike makes a huge, huge difference. I did my first 2 bike tours. This is really funny, actually. But I did my first bike tour on my dad's old mountain bike that had been sitting in the garage for 20 years. And I didn't have like a bike of my own, really, even. And so I rode my dad's bike, and this thing was really kind of a piece of junk, not designed for bike touring at all. It was a mountain bike. It had flat handlebars, which is not ideal. And yeah, and the bike gave me quite a few problems, but I was able to struggle through it and get to the end of the trip. My second year, I tried to ride that same bike across the United States on the Trans Am Trail, Trans-American Trail, which goes across the country from east to west. And I was cycling east to west. I went through Kansas, Colorado, and then I got up into Wyoming, and the bike just died on me completely. And I knew that there was no way I was going to make it across the rest of the country. And I had to quit and go home at the end of that year, or at the end, basically in the middle of Wyoming. I just was like, the bike is done. And so I got on a bus and went home. But the following year, I bought a new bicycle, a bicycle that was actually designed for bicycle touring. And wow, did it make a difference. It made my difficult bike tour the year before on the Trans Am seem so incredibly ridiculous, because I was working 4 times as hard on that old junker as I was on the bike that was actually equipped for bicycle touring. And ever since then, I've been riding the proper bike on my trips all around the world. And let me tell you, it makes a big difference. So if you can, get a good bike, no matter what that is. And you can get a good bike for bike touring for as little as like $600. Like, I would say that's like the entry level, bare bones, bottom, level bike that you can find. And the prices go up from there all the way up to like $10,000. I'm riding a bike right now that probably costs about $5,000 or $6,000. It's definitely one of the high-end bikes out there, but it's really good and makes a big difference. So anyways, that's tip number 2, is get a good bike if you possibly can. Tip number 3, I would say, is don't wait around too long, at least, for other people. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people want to go on a bike tour, but they're kind of afraid to do it on their own. And they want like a friend, a family member, a loved one, etc., to go with them. And that's great. Like, if you can get someone to go with you, awesome, do it. But if you really want to go on a bike trip and you can't get someone else to go with you, don't think that you can't do the bike trip at all. I was in this position myself on my second year of bike touring. My first year, I had 3 friends come along with me on different legs of the trip, so I always had someone cycling with me. But my second year, I just wasn't able to get anyone that had the free time or money or whatever to come with me. And I was in this predicament where I thought, gosh, if I want to do the trip, but I can't get anyone to go. So the choice is, maybe wait until next year. Maybe someone will be able to go with me next year, or I could go alone. And I'm very glad that I chose to go alone, because once I got out there, I realized it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't as dangerous as I thought it was going to be. And it was pretty easy, because I was traveling on a what is like a dedicated bike path. I ran into other bicycle tourists on a near daily basis. So there was always other people around. And I joined up for, with some of those people for a while, rode with them, and then connected with someone else and rode with them. So number 3, don't wait around for somebody else to do it. If you have this dream to go on a bike trip, go. The other thing too, like if you can't get someone to go with you, my friend Rob is here on the webinar, and we met in Switzerland on part of a guided bike tour with a company called Bike Switzerland. And I know that Rob joined that trip in part because he wanted to go to Switzerland and do a bike trip, but he didn't necessarily want to go alone. And so he saw this guided bike tour as an opportunity to do that bike trip that he wanted to in Switzerland, and at the same time be with a group of people and have that daily interaction and safety net and all of that. So if you're interested in a bike tour and you don't want to go alone, check out doing a guided group tour. That's another option. Tip number 4, choose your travel partners carefully. Your travel partners can really make a big difference on the overall success of a trip. Like, you choose the right travel partner, you'll come home from that trip with these incredible memories that you'll be talking about for years to come. Choose the wrong travel partner, your whole trip could be over before it's even started. I've probably traveled with dozens and dozens and dozens of people over the years, anywhere from 1 day to a month or more with that one individual. And I've learned a lot about not only picking your travel partners, but being a good travel partner as well. I think I still have some work to do on being a good travel partner. But I would just recommend that you think long and hard. I think too many people that are new to bike touring that want somebody to go with them, they're too quick to just go with anybody. Like there are forums and stuff on the internet where you can post that you're looking for anybody to go on the trip with you. And I'd be a little more cautious perhaps about doing that. If you do go with a complete stranger on a trip, I would go in with both parties with the understanding that you could break up at some point and go off on your own or go with other people or something like that. Just because especially with a stranger, you just have no idea what you're going to get. I enjoy meeting people on the road. Like this last year, I was in Poland and I just met this guy randomly. His name was Dodo, and he was from Germany, and we just met by chance, and he said, "Can I ride with you, for a little bit?" And we kind of cycled with each other for a day with no expectations of like he could be riding with me for an hour or 20 minutes or a day or a week. I don't know. But we just were kind of feeling each other out for that first day, and then we ended up camping together for the first night. And then, after a while, we were like, okay, we're going to cycle with each other for a whole week or something like that. And that was really cool, like, because there was no expectation up front. Like, we're going to cycle. You're a complete stranger, and I'm going to cycle with you for a week. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like that. It was just like, you're a complete stranger, and we're going to cycle together until we feel mutually that we should break off. So that was really cool, and I've done that a lot, and I think that's what a lot of solo bike tourists do, is especially those that are traveling on dedicated bike routes where there are other bike tourists out there. If you go in that way and find your travel partners kind of that way, it's a great way to travel. So anyways, choose your travel partners carefully. Number 5, this is what I was talking about with Eric, my friend Eric, who joined me in Norway recently. My big tip that I gave him was get physically prepared before you start your trip, or as well prepared as you possibly can. Too many people just do no training at all before the start of their trip, and then they get out there and realize, that riding a bicycle, especially a bicycle loaded down with stuff, is a lot more work than they thought it was going to be. But if the best way to prepare for a big bike trip, or a bike trip of any kind really, is to physically prepare as much as possible before your trip. And the best way to do that is by riding your bike as many miles or kilometers as you possibly can before the start of your tour. The best way to train for a bike trip is to ride your bike. So get out there as soon as possible, even if you're just riding your bike to work and back every day or something like that. That's really like the best training that you can possibly do. So do that. Tip number 6 that I have is that bike touring is mental. And a lot of people think that it's physically challenging, and it is to a certain extent. But most of bike touring, especially on a long bike trip, even on a short one really, is mental. 80% mental, 20% physical. And that's why inside the Bicycle Touring Blueprint, I think my book is different than probably all the other bike touring books out there, largely because I focus so much on the mental barriers and stuff that you're going to encounter on a bike trip. And no other book really does that. Most of the other websites and books and stuff about bike touring are all about physical stuff. And the truth is that's really just a small percentage of preparing for a bike trip. So yeah, and I think when I recently went to Norway and my friend Eric joined me, and I was trying to prepare him for the trip, and I think one of the best things that I did in preparing him was tell him that, you know, there are going to be moments on this trip that it's going to be difficult, and you're going to be sweating, and you might even want to quit, you know. But I promise you, you can get through that moment. Like, you will get to the top of the hill, and once you get there, you'll be so proud of yourself that you've done it, and you'll be rewarded on the back end, you know, by a big downhill, a rush of adrenaline and all that kind of stuff. So and that's exactly what happened. I mean, on the first day of our bike tour in Norway recently, Eric and I hit this big hill. Many of you may have watched the video of Eric climbing this hill. It was about a six kilometer uphill climb, which is not that big, but for Eric, who has never done any biking, this was a gigantic mountain, you know, a huge hurdle. And I think he, you know, because I had prepared him, he knew that there was going to be a hill like this, but he had never physically pushed a bike over something like that himself. But what got him through was what I had told him before, like the fact that he knew that eventually, if he just kept moving forward, he would reach the top, and that he could do it, you know. And I kept telling him that the whole way up, like Eric, you're making great progress. Like, all that matters is that you just keep putting one step in front of the other, you know, one foot in front of the other. And eventually we reached the top of the hill, and the hill was behind us, and we were on our way. So it was difficult for that short half hour or whatever that we were climbing, but you know, once we got past it, it was fantastic. So just keep that in mind, I think, with your own bike tours, is like there will be moments where maybe you want to quit or something, but if you can just push a little bit more, I promise you it'll be worth it. So my last big tip, another big mental tip, and then we'll get to the questions and answers. I guess my last big tip is that you should enjoy every moment out there. I think when I look back on my bike touring experiences now, I think there have been times where I got too much in my head, and you know, I was lonely or bored or tired or hungry or whatever, and in the moment it felt really bad, and like I wanted to go home, and all these sorts of things. But looking back at the end of the trip, you know, I realized every moment was good, even those bad moments, or the moments that seemed bad at the time, were actually some of the best moments of the whole trip. And that's the way, like with this big hill that Eric and I climbed in Norway. At the time, Eric, you know, was on the verge of tears, I think, and you know, was thinking about quitting or whatever. But now, when he looks back on it, I think he's pretty darn proud of himself and pretty happy that he had that experience. So, and I could say the same thing for myself. I think recent, like one of my hardest trips of recent, I was in 2013, I cycled across South Africa, Southern Africa, a couple countries down there for 3 months. And there were definitely some days where I was like, I want to go home. You know, I'm done here. But now when I look back on it, you know, I really think that that experience was one of my best bike touring experiences that I've had in 15 plus years of cycling all around the world. So yeah, just enjoy every moment, like the good moments, the bad moments, the quiet moments, everything. Enjoy it all. So that's it. Let's do Q&A now. I want to talk to you guys and answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to, if you are watching on YouTube, over on the right there's a comment box. Type in your questions and I will be happy to answer. I haven't read, I'm going to try to go back maybe and read some of these questions. Maybe not all of them, but if I miss you or something, just type the comment in, your question in again, and I'll try to answer as many as I can. I'm just going to the first question I see here, but Al says, what do you do for shaving? Al, what exactly is your question? Are you talking about shaving my face or shaving my legs? I'm not, or shaving other parts of me. I'm not exactly sure. Ask your question again, I'll answer further. Anyways, yeah. One person here says, I got a Fuji touring bike for $600. Yeah. As far as touring bikes go, there are, they usually, like, a brand new bike starts around $1,200. I'm gonna drink some water here. One sec. Usually brand new touring bikes start around $1,200, but you can usually, if you can find a used bike or last year's model, for example, like you could find a 2014 Fuji touring bike, and they are sometimes discounted down to like half the price of a new one, so like around $650. That's how I got my first touring bike. I think also, like, I paid $700, I think, for it or something when it was really brand new. I think around 1,100 at the time. So yeah, that's a good way to save money. Ben says, dogs. Any stories of crazy dogs bothering you? What's your best dog prevention advice? No, I don't have any crazy stories about dogs. I've probably had about 1,000 dogs chase me over the years on my bike, but usually they just chase you for a little bit, and then they're kind of done chasing you, and then they go back to their house. I've probably, in 15 years, I've had 2 dogs bite one of my rear panniers, the bags on the back of my bike, and kind of hang on to the bike. But they weren't really chasing me. They were just kind of chasing my bike. So I didn't really feel too bad. But yeah, recently a dog bit my bike bag in Romania, and I had another dog bite not me, but my bike in Mississippi on one of my United States bike tours. So yeah, one person, Kadam, says, is it too ambitious to do a 4-month bike tour for my first tour? No, it's not too ambitious. Maybe it depends where you're going in the world. I would suggest, however, doing a shorter bike trip before you do a big 4-month trip. I would, do it, especially like maybe like a 2 or 3 day trip near where you live, and just test everything out. Test your bike, test your gear, test how many miles you're comfortable doing in a single day. That's probably the best way that you could start. So I would do like a 3-day test near your home. If you do well with that, make some adjustments after the first 3 days, and then do like a week-long trip afterwards, and then do maybe the 4-month-long trip. So that's what I would suggest. Leon says, how often do you give your bike a clean and mini service, lube, etc. along the way? To be honest, I hate cleaning my bike, and I probably don't do it as often as I should. That being said, I probably clean the chain about once a week, and that involves just simply wiping it down with whatever I can find. Usually I find just an old rag or something, or paper, like a paper towel or a rag in the trash, because I don't carry like a special rag just to clean my bike. But so I usually just find an old rag in the trash or on the side of the road and use that to kind of wipe down any gunk that's built up on my chain. And then I lube the chain, and then I'm off. And that's usually all the cleaning that I do when I'm on a long tour. If you have access to a hose or something, that's a lot better. In a campground or in a hotel or something, if there's a hose nearby, I would recommend, just wiping your bike down as often as you possibly can, basically. And yeah, so that's all you really need to do. But yeah, it's mainly just your chain that you have to watch. Yeah. Let's see. Owen says, I'm planning a 2-week tour in South Florida. I'm worried about finding places to camp. Yeah, some parts of the world are a little, it depends where you are in the world. Camping can be more difficult to find. I'm not especially familiar with Florida. I've only ever been to the airports there. I've never cycled there. But I do know a lot of the territory is kind of swampy and stuff, and that's not really ideal for camping. you're probably going to want to look for established campgrounds, which is going to increase the cost of your bike tour. But that might be what you have to do. If that's the case, though, I mean, it's pretty easy to find those campgrounds online and just, plot out your route so that you're, planning to be at a campground every, 30 to 60 miles or whatever. But so that's where I would start, especially if you're worried about finding places to camp. I would spend the time, plot out, the route that you want to take, and then see how many campgrounds are along that route, how many established campgrounds are along that route. You might find that, there's nothing to worry about. So that's how I would start. Do you bring a spare derailleur in your repair kit? No, I've never done that. I've never had any derailleur problems on any of my trips, actually, thank goodness. I have cycled with, when I was in Iceland recently, a guy that I was traveling with, his derailleur broke off during the middle of the trip, and we were lucky enough to find all of the parts on the side of the road that had broken off. So we found the screw that had come out, basically, and we were able to put the derailleur right back together again. I think we were very fortunate in that particular instance that we were able to do that, but because that maybe not always happens. But the reason I don't bring a derailleur, and the reason I probably wouldn't even recommend it, is because the chances of that happening are pretty rare, especially if you've prepared your bike properly before the start of the tour. And if something does happen like that, which is a pretty serious break to your bike, I would just put your bike in a truck and go to the nearest bike shop and get a new derailleur, rather than carrying this big part with you that you probably won't end up using. Because there's a lot of things that you could bring with you that you might not ever use, and I've probably brought a lot of those things with me on the trip and then realized I'm probably never going to use these things. So that's one of them, is like bringing a whole rear derailleur or front derailleur or something like that as a backup. Maybe if you're cycling around the world and going through like incredibly remote areas, that's probably maybe a good idea to bring a spare derailleur. But if you're just cycling in Europe or North America, or some of the more established parts of the world where bike shops are every 50 to 100 miles or something, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Yeah, I'm trying to read the questions here. Ed says, have you ever used warm showers? Yeah, I use it all the time, actually. Warmshowers.org is a website that allows you to find free places to stay in people's homes, usually. It's usually other people that are cyclists and that have opened up their homes basically to people that are traveling through. And yeah, I use it on occasion, I guess. Maybe in the last year, I've only used it two or three times, maybe. But yeah, I use it on occasion, and I've found it to be good. I think the only downside to websites like Warm Showers or Global Freeloading or Couch Surfing and those sorts of sites is the amount of work involved in scheduling that arrangement. You have to email this person, say, can I stay with you on this date at this time? They have to email you back. Then you have to try to get to that person's house at the right time, blah, 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 and their house might be out of the way of your trip, etc. So while it's nice to have a place to stay, it can also be a lot of work to stay with somebody on that sort of a thing. So I think you have to keep that in mind, but I would definitely try it. Like, try it one or two times, see if you like it, and then go from there. But if you're planning like a big bike trip and you're planning to use warm showers every night, I know some people have done that. I wouldn't suggest that, actually. It's a lot of work to set something like that up. Have you ever been harassed when roadside camping? You would be surprised, but no, not really. The only time I can think that I was even been close to being harassed is I was camped on the side of the road in this town in Kansas, and these kids kept driving by and kind of like, I want to say yelling, but they weren't really yelling. They were just kind of excitedly giving me a cheer, basically, like, woo, yeah, bike touring or whatever. It was kind of fun the first time they drove by, but after like the fourth time of them honking their horn and waving and stuff, it was like, go away, I'm trying to camp here. But that's really the only time. I didn't feel threatened, though, in any way. So no, I think, people have a lot of worries about traveling and stuff, but really most people in the world are nice people, and if they see you camping, they just say, oh, there's a guy camping there, usually. But I personally try to camp in areas where I won't be discovered, and so where I won't have this problem. I call it stealth camping. Other people call it wild camping. But yeah, and I have if you just go to Google and type in stealth camping, my article, I think, is #1. All my tips about how to camp and not be discovered and stuff like that. So I'd recommend you read that article. Someone asked, is a roll-off hub preferable for touring? I don't have a good answer to that because I've never actually used a roll-off hub for a long tour, and I'm hoping, I'm thinking about getting I've had my CoMotion Pangea for the last 4 years, and I love it. It's a great bike, and I could continue to use it for years to come, but I was thinking of getting a new bike just for fun, just to try something new, a new bike that had a roll-off hub so that I could use it on a 2-year-long trip and really have, that sort of experience behind me, so I could give a better recommendation about it. So yeah, I want to try one. A roll-off hub is basically, instead of having metal gearing with a derailleur and a metal chain, you have like all the gears are inside the hub, and instead of a metal chain, it's kind of like a rubber plastic chain, basically, that requires almost no maintenance at all. It's kind of a new thing. It's expensive, but if it works, it could be amazing, especially for bike touring, especially for someone like me who doesn't like to clean your bike all the time. What are your best places to see in South England, Wales, etc.? I don't know exactly. I've been to Wales and England a couple times, but I don't know if I could give you a best place. My favorite place in Wales, gosh, I don't even know the name of it off the top of my head, was in northern Wales, kind of along the coast, in the mountains. I don't know the name of it really off the top of my head, to be honest. That was my favorite place. I don't have a favorite place in England, I don't think. Everywhere I've been in England has been too crowded for my liking. I think I would enjoy Scotland more, like more quiet areas. Yeah. In my mind, like, everybody has a different preference for bike touring. Like, some people like going through cities or like riding on established bike paths, or for me, I really like these like really quiet, empty country roads. So just depends on what your personal preference is too. Keith, hi Keith, says, are you going to tour with Caitlin again? I want to. She was just here in California. She lives in Greece normally, and she was just here 2 days ago. I went to lunch with her. And yeah, I want to get her on another bike trip, but we haven't planned anything, so who knows? Maybe in the next year or two, we'll do another one together. It'd be fun. I am planning to do another trip with Kevin. I don't know if you guys remember Kevin, but like 1 year ago, I was in Taiwan. I spent 30 days cycling across Taiwan with my friend Kevin, who's from Australia. And we're planning another big bike tour together for this coming year, 2016. We're going to ride across Spain and Portugal together. And we're going to do 4 different bike tours with companies in Spain and Portugal. Each tour is about a week long. And we're going to be inviting you guys to come and ride with us. We're going to be like staying in, instead of camping, we're going to be like staying in hotels every night. And we're going to be doing these tours with these companies, so that like the food is arranged, the route has all been arranged for us. And yeah, and then we stay in hotels every night that have all been arranged. So it'll be kind of a really nice, cool way to cycle across Portugal and Spain. I'm going to be announcing the details of that soon. I'm still trying to work out some of the last minute details, etc. I'm trying to see if I can arrange discounts for you guys, because these tours that we're doing, they do cost some money, but I'm trying to arrange like discounts with the companies to be like, hey, if you want to come, get $100 off or something like that. You know what I mean? So I'm working out those details, and I'll announce that on the Bicycle Train Pro website soon. I'll announce it here on YouTube as well. So as long as you're subscribed to my email newsletter list, you'll definitely hear about it. I'll be talking about it on social media and stuff too. And so that's coming out soon. So weird question. What's your resting heart rate? I don't know off the top of my head. I'll have to test and find out, I guess. How is prepping for your next bike tour going? Hugo asks. Well, like I said, I'm kind of planning everything at this point now, and I'm also thinking about, like I said, the bike. I might get a new bike for next year. I've already bought some new shirts to cycle in, which I'm excited about. Things like that. I want to get a new pair of shoes because my old bike shoes I've been wearing since 2013. They're getting a little beat up. By the way, if you want some good shoes, like I have been using Shimano mountain biking shoes basically with SPD pedals, and that's what I've been using for years and years and years. I think I've only had 3 pairs of bike shoes in 15 years of bike touring. Like, they just last a long time, even though I use them like a lot and really beat the heck out of them. So Shimano SPD bike, mountain biking shoes are great for bicycle touring, in my opinion. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Ozsan says, "Have you ever used Pinion?" No, I don't know what that is. What is that? Yeah, somebody said Go Bicycle Touring website is cool. Yeah, if you're looking for a guided or self-guided bike tour, these are bike tours that are arranged by a company. If you're looking for that sort of a tour where like you just call them and say, I want to go on vacation, May 3rd through the 11th or something, and I want to go to Norway. Like you call one of these companies on the gobicycletouring.com website, they will arrange everything for you. Like, they'll have a bike for you when you arrive. They'll have the route planned out for you. They'll have your meals planned. If you have special dietary restrictions, they'll help you with that. All the hotels will be, reserved for you, so that you just ride your bike every day. You show up at the hotel, and then like your dinner is prepared and everything is nice. Like, it's a great way to travel. And just this last year, I think I did 3 or 4 trips like that. And they're awesome. So if that sort of bike touring interests you, go to gobicycletouring.com and check out the tours that are there. There are, like, on that one website, there are like 750 bike tours all around the world. So there's a world map. You can like click on the part of the world you want to go to, and you can see all the tours that are available there. You can also search by country or price or any number of things. So, yeah. Someone says, can you talk about your almost frostbite and wearing winter boots while riding? Yes, I can talk about that. In one of my recent videos, I was cycling in Norway, and it was really, really cold this particular day. It was like raining, and my foot was like frozen because it was so cold. And somebody said, like, why weren't you wearing winter boots, or why weren't you wearing rain covers? Well, the reason I didn't have that stuff with me is because I was in Norway in July, and I thought in July it would be warm, but it was actually on this particular day freezing cold. If I, like, when you're planning a big bike tour, like I just did, like 2 years, you kind of have to be prepared for everything. And at this particular point of my trip in July, I had gotten rid of all of my winter stuff that I was carrying with me earlier in the year for winter cycling. I had winter gloves and a face mask and a beanie and all this stuff that you would wear during the winter time. But because I was in July, I didn't have some of those things, and because of that, I got a little cold. Yeah, it was just something that I had to put up with for the day. I didn't think it was at a dangerous level, but yeah, it could get there if you push it. So you got to be careful, especially cycling in cold weather. And yeah, that's all. That's all I have to say about that. What? Just a few more minutes, guys. 5 more minutes, and then we got to call it here. So if you have a question, type. Now's the time. Somebody said, "Where are you now?" I'm in Southern California and near Los Angeles, just planning and prepping for my next trip. So that's what's going on now. Somebody says, "I can't handle clipless pedals and shoes. I use regular sneakers. Is that super unadvisable on a long tour?" Brian asks. No, that's not unadvisable. A lot of people just wear shoes, like regular tennis shoes or sandals or something. If you do just use a regular pair of shoes, you want to have something that has a firm sole on it to allow you to pedal better on the bike. That's my only real big recommendation. And yeah, that's it. But no, you don't need to pedal with SBD, clips on your shoes. It just helps a little bit. I kind of felt the same way about these clips when I first got started. I was like, oh, I don't like these. But then after using them for like a month, I was like, I can't ever ride my bike without these. So it's something I would definitely recommend people try, especially if they're doing a big bike trip where they're planning to cycle a lot over a long period of time. But if you're just doing a shorter trip, a week or 2 weeks or something like that, no, you don't need to go out and buy special shoes. What advice about electronics, solar charging, sat nav, etc.? David asks. Well, truth is, you don't need any of that. I did probably my first 10 years of bike touring just with paper maps and nothing else. Only in recent years have I gotten a bit more sophisticated. And I think now the modern bicycle tourist probably only needs a smartphone to get by. Your smartphone has a GPS built into it. If you get an offline mapping application, I think I use one called Pocket Earth, and I've used Pocket Earth, and the one I use now is called Maps for Me, I think, or Maps.me. That's a really good one, but it allows you to basically see where you are anywhere in the world without using the internet, just using the GPS on your phone. It doesn't cost money. It's the app maybe costs $5, but using the app costs nothing. So that's what I used this whole last 2 years, was this $5 application on my phone, and didn't need to buy a special GPS or anything else. I just used my phone. But yeah, like keeping your electronics charged is probably the most difficult part now about, I think, bike touring in 2015 and beyond. And I think because more and more people are traveling with electronics. They have their phone, they got a GoPro video camera, they got their laptop sometimes, and all of these things, drain your batteries. And if you're camping a lot, it can be difficult to keep all those electronics charged. That's part of the reason I enjoy staying in hotels and stuff, is it allows me to not have to worry about, I can use my phone all day long, camera, listen to music, use the GPS, and then at the end of the day, charge it back up again, no problem. And then have it charged the following day when I go out again. But if you're camping, yeah, solar power definitely helps. Using a dynamo hub, which generates electricity from you pedaling your bike, that helps. The problem, I think, is depending on how many electronics you carry, like even having a solar panel, even having a dynamo hub, that doesn't mean like you can exist 100% off the grid. Like, you still will probably have to plug in your phone and charge your batteries at some point. So yeah, that's all I got to say. I don't know, unless you have a more specific question. Do you have any advice about winter touring? One moment, one sec. I have tons of advice about winter touring, actually. This is my book about winter cycling. A lot of people, I don't mention this very often, but I think it's actually probably one of my better books. But it's all about winter cycling, everything you need to know basically about cycling in the wintertime, what to wear, what kind of tires to use, how to clean your bike, etc., etc. I wrote this after I grew up in Southern California, and I moved to Utah, I think in 2006, something like that. And I live in a ski town now where there's snow up to, above my head when I walk out the door. So it was quite a shock for me to go from sunny Southern California to cycling in snow during the winter time. And I wrote this book basically after living in the snow for several years and after conducting several, long distance bike tours through snowy conditions. Many of you might remember some of my photos from, Slovakia, where I'm pushing my bike through, waist deep snow and stuff. So that's, if you want a book about, winter cycling, this is the one to get. You can learn more at wintercyclingbook.com. But yeah, that whole book is filled with tips. I don't know what, I got lots of tips. Anyways, what else? It's been an hour, guys. I think I'll answer one more question and then I'm going to go. Thank you so much for tuning in. One more, guys. What did you want me to answer? Okay. Somebody said, when are you coming to Poland again? I've been to Poland. Gosh, I've probably spent more time in Poland than I have in any other country in Europe. And I really like it there. I like the people. I think it's a great place to cycle. It's flat, which is enjoyable. There's also some mountains and stuff too, but don't know. I'd like to get to Poland next year, maybe. Who knows? I have the problem, being from the United States, I can only be in Schengen, Europe for 3 months at a time. So I'm already planning to be in Portugal and Spain for 2 months next year. So I've only got a month left in Schengen, Europe. What do I do with that? Not sure. Anyways, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learned a little something. I hope I motivated you in some way to get out there. Stay tuned for more videos here on the Bicycle Touring Pro YouTube channel. I'm publishing a new video every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Right now, if you've been watching, my last couple videos have been from my bike tour with my friend Caitlin on the Fjord Cycling Route Bike Tour in Norway. This was a self-guided bike tour that Caitlin and I did together in like central western Norway, kind of, and it was really fantastic, and it was cool to cycle with Caitlin. So yeah, check out the last videos. There will be a new video with Caitlin tomorrow, which you aren't going to want to miss. And after I finish that bike tour with Caitlin, you'll see me all throughout December and even into early January. I'll be publishing the videos, but you'll see the videos of me cycling across Norway and Sweden on my own. And I run into some wild weather out there. It rained for like 4 days in a row. So you'll see what that looked like and how I handled that. And you'll also see some of the most beautiful parts of Scandinavia in those videos. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have other questions that you think I can help you with, visit the website at bicycletouringpro.com. There's over 1,000 free articles on there about bike touring all around the world, how to do it, that kind of thing. If you need more help, of course, the Bicycle Touring Blueprint or my other books. I'm going to do a little promo here. The Essential Guide to Touring Bicycles is a good one if you're looking for a new touring bike. Stretching for Cyclists with my friend Carolyn Gleich. You know, stretching is important. And then the Winter Cycling book. We're going into wintertime here, so check all those out. If you buy the book, it helps me a little bit. I don't make tons of money from selling those books or anything. It does help me a little bit just to keep up the cost of the website and stuff. So, but you know, I'm really proud of the fact that like my books have been sold all around the world to thousands of people who have then gone on to live out their own bicycle touring adventures. So I think that's what I'm most proud of with my books and really with my website in general, is like getting those emails from you guys saying, you know, hey, Darren, you motivated me to do a trip. You taught me how to do it, and I went out and did it. So thanks so much, guys. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye.